medication has a higher likelihood of causing cancer. As long as my mother's taking medication and dies of natural, death of cancer and Alzheimer's, nobody's ever going to point a finger at what actually caused her death. And it caused her death with the cancer is she was living a toxic life that if she was alive or if she was able to have people that love and care for her would not have allowed that lifestyle to take place. So she would have never developed cancer if she was not in the hands of my brother, my sister-in-law, and my niece and nephew. She would have been around loved ones that actually cared about her, who, by the way, all the time these people were alive, I've tried saying something. I've reported this to the police. I've reported it to elderly abuse, the hospitals. There ain't nobody. I've made videos about this. This is not a secret. This is in memory of my mother, that she developed Alzheimer's because of the level of abuse that she was forced to deal with. Her mind developed this, it ain't going to, I'm not going to get in any shit as long as I can't remember. I will find that magical trick that will keep me safe because I can't leave it. So her neural nets would constantly go to, can't remember. Can't remember. It worked for her. Her brain was now being programmed to go down a direction that would always keep her safe, to the point where now her brain is on automatic pilot that just can't remember anything. When I was able to have contact with my mother, one time, she was never able to have lengthy conversations except for when she was with me. And, she was able to have very, very long conversations if you talked about things that she wanted to talk about. If you wanted to talk about anything that was upsetting, she would not do well. It was never going to be good for me to have contact with her while my father was alive during the last years, because my father was now, she turned him into my best buddy, because that would be the best way of playing my dad, is call him your best buddy and she can get him to do what she wanted him to do. She, in her lost mind, she told me that she was able to walk up to my father right up close and personal and say, you know what, I don't have to argue with you anymore. I can't remember what you said. I have Alzheimer's. And then she'd laugh at him and walk away. That's my mother's humor. That's my mother's way of outwitting her opponent. He was abusive, and she had to outwit him to keep safe. So it would be in my mother's character to call her abuser her best buddy when she's, has to rely on him to get her what she needed. But she did do it to herself by not leaving. But my voice is, how can you leave an abusive person when we have universities that can't tell the difference between right and wrong? These are highly educated people. My nephew, like I said, since he was a child, spent his summer schools in the University of Waterloo. There's no question. All of his education, I'm sure, has been money stolen from somebody, so the only way they even got educated is questionable. I know my brother got into business. My father set him into a business working for a city counting coins, so he basically didn't do any work for thousands of dollars every month that he didn't pay a dime in income tax. So I know that my brother knows how to manipulate the system where he doesn't have to pay any taxes. I know he would have transferred most of the wealth from my parents to his in a manner that he's not paying any taxes. I'm sure it's funneled through his children, and they all, I'm sure, know about it. These are questions that the only way that somebody in poverty can ask is publicly. Can't go to an organization that seems to want to do anything. And in the memory of my mother, I'm going to speak this out loud. I'm going to point a finger and say, hey, this is a psychopath. This is a nephew of mine that sat in a room with his grandmother who showed him nothing but love and allowed the situation where she was allowed to die without loved ones around her. And it sounds like it was a pulling of the plug. If everybody could be around and music could be played, it sounds like it was well played, like some plug could be pulled. for somebody to go against somebody's wishes that much, this kid is going to be so genius, he's going to create something that is going to be a product that's harmful. And, we don't care whether it's harmful to you as long as somebody can profit from it. This is the mentality. This is the family mentality that goes on. And as long as our universities can't even teach people the difference between right and wrong, then they bring that to their work. It kills me when I see politicians cheating. It's like, well, if they cheat on their own family, you better believe they're cheating on their country. That's how we got here, is because we're so stupid thinking that one characteristic in one part of somebody's life is not going to be characteristic in another person's life or part of their lives. And it's like, no, people tell you who they are. And if they're a killer, if they will allow somebody's death, and by not granting them what it takes for them to live a healthy life. My mother would have lived a lot longer if she had loving people around her. If she was surrounded by people that couldn't wait to get their hands on their money, she would die a lot faster. My mother was smart. She knew. And she knew right away that, now that my father's dead and I'm in the hands of my abusive son now, and I can see that my daughter's not coming into my life, even if she lost her mind, I know in her DNA knowing, because this has been a lifelong plan. I'm 53. This is a plan that we swore that regardless what happens, this is what I was to do and this is what she was to do, and we are going to do our best. That was our motto, is this is the plan and we're just going to do our best. And I followed the plan and I did my best. I wasn't able to save my mother, but hell, I wasn't able to do anything legally to protect myself in my own divorce and abuse situation. I wasn't able to do anything about my father's abusive situation. There's nothing that I could do to protect my mother from my brother. The only thing I can do is say, hey, there's some warning signs coming out of the University of Waterloo by, my nephew, Jordan. So it's up to society to want something better, because we feed these psychopaths. We give them good jobs. We let them know that you're a genius for coming up with this. But in the meantime, they're coming up with brilliant ideas that the general public may not understand and won't understand how much harm it does to other people. There may be a few, but just like in the smallness of our families, how we get along is the same in our communities, where you can have activists that are telling these genius, highly educated, corporate, product producing, job creating organization. These activists can't talk to them and say, hey, you're killing people. So if activists can't do the job, I can't do the job either, but I can talk about it. And I, can't be sued since I have no money. So pretty much all they can do is kill me, or put me in jail, or do some level of harm to me to keep me quiet. But at the end of the day, it's like, why is it you need to do harm to somebody to keep somebody quiet? Why can't you logically have the conversation? Is it a wise idea to educate and give these people high-paying jobs who have been known, I don't give a shit about my own family. Let's put some psychology. Let's improve our way of thinking and put pieces of the puzzle together. Some of us that have been victims of abuse have been asking for help, but these Christian, Bible people that think, they know the answers. They're a politician or a lawyer with a great education, and they can't realize what it takes to help somebody because they are the problem. They're all making it legally and socially acceptable because somebody's profiting off of this. As long as you're profiting off it, you are the problem. I would suggest that the University of Waterloo profits a great deal from a lot of children that have been highly trained abusers from their past. And they're taking that education and creating jobs and everything with the same mentality. Einstein said it best, it's going to take a completely new mindset to solve the problems that created these problems of today. I'm seeing the same mindset that's successful. I'm given the warning sign. It's up to everybody else that wants to take that warning sign. Now, does my niece and nephew hold the potential to repeat? Or, or do they have the potential to be loving, normal human beings? Yes, they have the potential to do both. But just like maybe the University of Waterloo doesn't like what I'm saying, maybe they might want to have a conversation to sway my mind to say something different. Writing a book, this chapter's in. Do you want me to be writing a chapter the way I am, or do you want to influence me into believing in something completely different? I'm open for the conversation. I'm hoping to stimulate the conversation of a brilliant mind and ask the question, are you so brilliant, when people end up dying from it? There are endless possibilities and potentials. But as long as there are family members that are pointing a finger at a behavior that says, no, I wouldn't trust that person with my own mother, then I would think that it would be in their best interest to change my mind. But if there's only going to be more rage, because they're a little rageful at my words, and that's usually the ping pong game that goes on, is they do something that causes a reaction. And my brother knew full well, this is a lifelong knowing, that my brother has secrets, and I always reveal them. And so my brother knew that if he was going to do this something so unthinkable to my mother, he knew I would talk about it. So my brother is in a way psychologically giving me permission to talk about him and his family and all of their secrets. He wants that. He's like pushing my buttons, cause and effect. I would not be talking about what I'm talking about today if my brother didn't cause me to really observe, okay, what caused my mother's death? Could it be prevented? Could her life have extended longer? Yes, it could. And I haven't seen anybody that can have that debate with me. When I see that, and I see that my nephew finally stands up and says, Dad, you're pretty screwed up. You're a drunk, you're an alcoholic, and a gambler, and no loving father would ever raise their children in that state of mind. You do not know the difference between right and wrong, or you would be living in a life of everything that's right instead of everything that's wrong. When my nephew can actually look in a mirror of his own life and his own family and point the finger and say, I'm no longer going to support and sustain and be an enabler, then that they're breaking the pattern. As long as they're all supportive of it, as long as they're all profiting off of it, there's another generation of psychopaths that are definitely going to use society to profit off of. And they don't care whether you're dying or not. It's the creation of a psychopath. You all think that they're worthy, and you will never listen to the victims, the activists that are saying, hey, something is wrong here. Nobody knows how to sit at a peace table and find that way of ending these family patterns that reflect in our communities, that reflect in our provinces, and then in our countries, and then in our globe. We got some growing up to do, some maturity to come on. So I'm challenging University of Waterloo. Have you been well educating my nephew, Jordan Lapointe, to be another CEO psychopath, more on the scientific side of things, where he's going to make up the new rules of how society lives? Like saying toxic waste is no longer toxic because he's profiting off of saying those words? What kind of crazy guy are you pumping through school? You've been warned of who's graduating from your, have you been teaching them the difference between right and wrong? Are you looking at the psychology, the minds behind the education that you're giving out? Or do you have to throw out all of your education because your education is doing nothing but creating psychopaths that are designed to kill the whole friggin' planet because somebody's profiting? Love and peace out. In memory of my mother, she was one of the most amazing persons I've ever seen. She could really understand what was going on. She was into horoscopes, which means that she was always looking at a bigger picture. She always told me that I was always in a learning phase of my life, and that when I was older, I would achieve success. And I'm older, and the only thing that I choose to be successful at is how do we stop abusers? Because my mother lived it, I lived it. It is who I am. Our abusers created the person I am today.